Considering we're in the month that has been charmingly deemed Spooktober, I find it only fitting to talk about films that I myself find scary, frightening, disturbing, uneasy, and other words you would use to describe something that invokes in you one of the most primal human emotions: fear. I have broken down this video in 3 segments, each talking about a specific theme of horror. I hope you enjoy. It was only a couple of years ago that a worldwide pandemic was our daily life. Images of masks, isolation, sickness and death were commonplace, our reality, as they have been many times throughout history. One of the deadliest and thus most memorable examples of this would surely have to be the second major outbreak of the bubonic plague. The Black Death, as it was later coined, resulted in the death of roughly a third of Europe's entire population in the 14th century. But we do not need to go that far into history to encounter a deadly black-hearted disease that threatened mass death. Only about 50 years, when in 1972 the last European outbreak of a disease, which in my language is called the Black Goats and is known in English as smallpox, occurred. The 1972 smallpox outbreak in the Belgrade General Hospital is the subject of the film Variola, Vera, and this film is so frightening because of how realistically it portrays the event. At points almost seeming like a documentary. The fear of this deadly disease, the panic at not knowing what to do, the struggle between making sure that the virus does not spread outside the hospital and providing aid to those now trapped inside, all create a powerful atmosphere present throughout the film. And when it shows the infected patients in their battle with death, truly chilling. But for me, the presence of a deadly virus is not even required when dealing with a hospital setting to make me feel uneasy. Even normal images of a standard surgical procedure or the everyday interior of a hospital can unnerve me. The thought of something being wrong with me, wrong with my body, that could impact the way I live my life is scary to me because it is a distinct possibility. It would happen to me tomorrow or in 10 years, but it is always somewhere in the back of my mind. It is no surprise then that films which talk about characters going through such medical problems stay with me. Whether it is the discovery of cancer and where the realization that you only have a few more months to live, as shown in Akira Kurosawa's masterpiece Ikiru, or the loss of one's ability to hear, as portrayed in The Sound of Metal. But the one that sticks with me the most is the portrayal of a man dealing with a neurological illness in It's Such a Beautiful Day. This minimalist animated feature has some of the most unique ways of portraying mental illness that I've ever seen, such as this scene where the main protagonist Bill is receiving a medical exam.
Powerful anesthetic is introduced to temporarily shut down the left hemisphere of his brain. And for the remaining half of Bill, the test begins.
Bill, can you hear me? Bill, can you look up here for me? Can you tell me what these objects are? Bill, can you tell me what this is?
Bill, can you add up these numbers for me?
You're doing great, Bill.
Okay, and what do these numbers add up to?
Look at me, Bill. Look at me. Bill, look at me.
Okay, Bill, and can you tell me who this is?
It's okay, Bill, you're doing great.
And can you tell me who this is? Bill, can you tell me who this is? Do you remember her?
All of these films show characters whose lives have been irreversibly altered by their medical conditions, which they are powerless against. The feeling of being powerless is not just reserved to battles against medical problems. An individual can feel powerless when they are faced with a system that doesn't care about them, that treats them as a number instead of a human being. And never have I seen this portrayed better than in the film I, Daniel Blake. After suffering a heart attack, 59-year-old carpenter Daniel Blake is informed by his doctor that he is yet unable to return to work. A sentiment that is however not shared by the British government, as they in their own examination have come to the conclusion that he is fit for work and as such deny him any financial support. Having no other alternative opposed to starving, Daniel must now face the complicated, unfair, bureaucratic machine that instead of compassion offers apathy, showing how this awful panic-inducing battle can lead to people losing their dignity.
Opposite a sick man looking for non-existent jobs that I can't take anyway, wasting my time, the employer's time, your time. And all it does is humiliate me, grind me down. I was at the point to get my name off those computers.
In the worst case scenario, their life.
My name is Daniel Blake. I am a man, not a dog. As such, I demand my rights. I demand you treat me with respect. I, Daniel Blake, am a citizen. Nothing more and nothing less.
There are a few things more horrifying in the history of humanity than war, especially modern mechanized warfare that can easily result in the deaths of thousands, if not millions. If deadly diseases such as the Black Death or Variola are a natural, cosmic plague, war is a plague of humanity's own creation, a death that we ourselves have carefully constructed. There is definitely no lack of cinema about warfare, but not many are the films that succeed in showing the full hardship, brutality, and horror of it. One of the first to do so is most definitely All Quiet on the Western Front from 1930, a film about the First World War shown from the perspective of a young German soldier who at first enthusiastically embarks on this great adventure, but over time witnesses and himself takes part in the horror of it all. Even though this film is almost 100 years old, some of its images are still blood-curdlingly terrifying. Films about war do not at all have to show the actual combat to be frightful. There are many despicable aspects to war apart from the frontline fighting. In this way, The Zone of Interest, a film about the commandant of Auschwitz, Rudolf Höss, and his family, is eerily unnerving despite showing no violence at all, let alone death in combat. The death and suffering here is all implied, in the background, or should I say, a few meters off to the side. For at the same time that this picture-perfect family is enjoying their time together, thousands are being systematically murdered every day right next to them. Another example of an unflinching look at the horrors of war, which shows no combat, is the film Johhny Got His Gun. It talks about a young American soldier who was struck by mortar fire in the last days of World War I, leaving him without any limbs, nor eyes, ears, nose, or even a mouth. Alive, but a prisoner in his own malformed body. Without any way to interact with the outside world, he slowly realizes the reality of his new existence. After some time, he begins trying to communicate with those around him, tapping his head on the bed in Morse code. He asks to be put on display so that people can see the grotesque result of modern warfare, but to no avail. His request is denied. His next request is far more simple. "Kill me," he begs. "Kill me." Even this, though, is denied. He is forced to remain trapped in this nightmare from which he cannot wake up.
Well? He won't wait for an answer. All he says is, "Kill me, kill me, kill me."
Don't you have some message for him, Padre? You could at least tell him to put his faith in God, couldn't you? I'll pray for him for the rest of my days.
But I will not risk testing his faith against your stupidity.
Well, you're a hell of a priest, aren't you?
He's the product of your profession.
Not mine.
If Johhny Got His Gun is an account of a personal consequence of war, the Soviet film Dead Man's Letters is a global one. Taking place in a world ravaged by atomic warfare, it is one of the most devastating and unflinching portrayals of nuclear holocaust ever put on film. People hide in underground shelters, trying to survive, trying to find some meaning to this current world. The main character is an old professor living in a bunker under a museum, along with his sick wife and other intellectuals. He writes letters for his missing son, even though he has no way of knowing if he is even alive. The devastated world that this film shows is truly dreadful in its absolute destruction. Throughout its entirety, characters discuss philosophical ideas such as this apocalypse was inevitable, if there is hope, a second chance for mankind, if humanity even deserves this second chance, and so on. And in the middle of the film lies a scene where the main character, in an attempt to find his son, enters a room filled with children injured by the falling bombs and the radiation. This scene is one of the most terrifying, spine-chilling things I have ever witnessed. That scene is one of the scariest I've ever watched. The last film in this section probably has about 4 or 5 of those. It is in my opinion the most devastating portrayal of war ever made. It is Come and See. A story about a young Belarusian boy who enlists in the partisans is so unflinchingly brutal, so, for a lack of better word, fucked up in its portrayal of the horrors of the Second World War that it is hard to compare to anything else. This is in no small part owed to the director Alen Klimov, who witnessed the devastation of this war firsthand. And I could talk about all the awful things that this film presents. The mass killing of people, the joy with which this is done, the psychological torture of witnessing it all, but I'd rather not. Instead, I urge you to watch it for yourself, to come and see. I think it's safe to say that the unknown scares people. Entities or concepts about which we know nothing, have no way to figure out their intentions, no way to combat them. In this same way, films that talk about and show unusual things whose meaning is not clear can be quite memorable and deeply disturbing. Take for example the Stanley Kubrick classic, The Shining. Now, already as a whole, this film is not at all straightforward, being very much psychological, internal horror. But nonetheless, one scene that has always stood out to me in particular is this one, of Wendy in a panicked state running around the hotel, fleeing from her insane husband, and then witnessing this. No explanation, just a completely bizarre shot. Now you could definitely find some meaning or message here, but I think it works best as just a pure what the fuck moment. A complete shock to the system. One subgenre of horror that I find is often well utilized with the idea of the unknown or alien concepts is body horror. Flesh mutating, transforming in bizarre, unnatural ways is a powerful image, able of provoking a feeling of grotesque repulsion and uncomfort, especially when what we are witnessing is something we can barely comprehend. When it comes to such images in cinema, it is hard to look past The Thing and its depiction of an alien organism that shapeshifts and assumes the form of other creatures to disguise itself, be it human or as shown in this scene, canine. When it comes to images of alien body horror, of course, I also have to mention the iconic chestburster from the Alien franchise. The idea of something taking control of your body and forcibly laying its eggs inside you is so primally terrifying as a concept. Losing control over your own body as something else slowly takes over is frightening and doesn't just work with an alien, but also with an inorganic substance such as metal, as we can see in a very bizarre and disturbing film called Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is about a Japanese businessman who has his body taken over by rusted pieces of metal, slowly transforming into this unnatural hybrid of flesh and iron. Moving away from the idea of body horror to a film you could possibly describe as papier-mâché horror. The Wolf House, a stop-motion animation film about a young woman escaping the wolf and hiding in a seemingly abandoned house, is full of creepy, unsettling, bizarre images in the form of stop-motion, using clay, paint, puppets, and the aforementioned papier-mâché. It invokes the feelings of being trapped, controlled, not knowing exactly what is going on, but being unable to look away from the surreal insanity happening on screen.
Nein, cuidado, Pedrito. Se están quemando. Cuidado, Pedrito. Se están quemando. Cuidado, se están quemando.
If there is one film that expertly combines the elements of eerie, surrealist images, body horror, and the general unease of watching something completely odd and alien, it has to be the film Eraserhead. A film about a man living in a bizarre, uncanny, industrial, almost somewhat post-apocalyptic world, dealing with his girlfriend's creepy family and their disgusting, malformed creature of a child, wishing and searching for an escape, for something, anything else. Filled to the brim with strange sequences, disturbing images, and disorientating sounds whose meanings are discussed and talked about to this day. I think it is precisely because it is so open-ended and unknown that it's so impactful and lasting. It refuses to be erased from your memory, its curious, unorthodox ideas and images ever present somewhere in the deep reaches of the mind. Disease, hopelessness, human suffering, war, the unknown and unexplainable. These ideas and their images scare me.